What's good, everybody? It's your boy D Money. We on another day in the life of a designer. What we're gonna get into tonight is fashion, business, and ownership. So make sure that you like, subscribe, share with your friends and family, so that way they can get the gems that we drop in here at Dreams of Ruler Street Fashion. You know what I'm saying? We also got our From the Mud collection out. Um, it's on our website, of course. You can also check out our From the Mud spoken word album, which is on all streaming platforms. And along with that, we have our poetry book, which is available on all book platforms and at your local library as well too. So make sure that you tap in, show love, check out the vibes of pain, pressure, and struggle that turn into transformation and progress. Um, Like I said, we're primarily going to be talking about fashion, business, and ownership. You feel me? And all the day ones know that we start off with an opening question, and that is, if you create the culture, design the product, and build the audience, who will actually own the value you create. In this episode, isn't simply about how to make money in fashion. It's about the relationship between creativity, commerce, and, control. Fashion is an industry, not just an art. And, you got to actually think about, being a good, you know, the idea of being a good designer. You know what I'm saying? Is that actually enough? A fashion brand has two sides: the creative side, which is the design, taste, storytelling, culture, innovation. And then, you got the commercial side, which is, the production, the price, distribution, marketing, cash flow, ownership. A designer can create something extraordinary and still build a weak business. You feel me? Like, that's pretty much, how I've started out. I had to reform the business side of things so that way, it could catch up to the product. That's what happens with a lot of creatives. We get caught up in the creativity and our art and all that, but a lot of times you miss the business side of things. What happens when the person with the vision doesn't control the business around the vision. You feel me? And that's really the question that a lot of us got to ask ourselves on our own journeys. And who actually creates that value? First, it's the designer, then the manufacturer, then the marketer, retailer, platforms that you use, and the customer. Everybody can take a piece of the value, but who created the original idea? You feel me? Independent designers can spend years developing, aesthetic, intellectual property, brand identity, audience, cultural relevance, yet still have little control over the infrastructure of, the brand and everything surrounding them. So my angle and Dreams of Rulers angle is, I'm not trying to create products. I'm trying to retain ownership of those products and where they came from. You feel me? Like that's primarily why I started my own brand, because I wanted to work for other brands, but they didn't, you know, appreciate my work. You feel me? They didn't really, you know, feel the same way I felt about my work. And ultimately, a lot of brands, when you don't have what's good, Kai, appreciate you for tapping in, appreciate you for liking, helps us to continue to grow. You feel me? We trying to build a community here, not just, have people that be bouncing in and out. You feel me? We trying to grow. What's good, Big Cheese? Appreciate y'all for tapping in. Make sure y'all like and subscribe, and make sure you check out our From the Mud collection as well too. The link is in the bio. But ownership is bigger than owning the company. Ownership, isn't just about incorporation. It's about understanding what needs control, like the brand name. Yes or no? What? Like I was saying, Oh, no problem, no problem. That's what I'm here for. You feel me? Not here just to give you the motivation, but also, you know what I'm saying, the truth, the facts, and what actually can help you to grow your brand, your business, and even hopefully, you know, within your personal life as well too. You feel me? That's why our motto is visualize your purpose, live like royalty. Because, you know, everybody can, you know, get inspiration, get, you know, motivation, but ultimately the thing is that do you know how to, you know, execute your dreams and goals? I don't, I don't know about the know, but yeah. What ultimately needs to have control when, you know, you're owning the brand is the brand name, the designs, trademarks, images, content, customer relations, distribution, audience, archives, intellectual property, and brand philosophy. Wow. Um, you know, important distinction is revenue is money coming through the business. Ownership is control over the asset that, you know, keeps producing value. A designer can generate revenue without, you know, building meaningful equity. So the trap of being the talent, that's where, you know, fashion often celebrates the designer while the business uh, structure can, you know, exist somewhere else. Explore the difference between being the creative talent and being the owner of, you know, creative institutions. Another company owns distribution, another company controls the audience, another company controls production. Another company, you know, controls the data, and then another company, you know, finances the brand. So, you know, if I stop designing tomorrow, what part of Dreams of Rulers would still belong to me? That's the ownership test ultimately in what you're doing. Jeffrey Epstein, get the fuck off my live with that bullshit, bro. Nobody care about what you talking about. Culture, you know, can create value before the business captures it. You feel me? This especially is relevant to our philosophy of street luxury. Street culture has generated an enormous influence across music, sneakers, art, fashion, and, you know, advertising and even entertainment. You feel me? Cultural influence and, you know, economic ownership, you know, aren't automatically the same thing. Being influential doesn't, you know, necessarily mean being, you know, economically powerful, because as you can see, there's a lot of people that are economically powerful and don't do shit with their, you know, power. They, like Nicki Minaj said in the song Realize, there's a lot of people that are not about shit, but, you know, that's something that I had to realize. Hey, you don't gotta give it all to me, you know what I'm saying? I look at it this way. We all, you know, got the opportunity to make money, and you just got to understand, you know, how to do it, put a solid plan together, you know what I'm saying? Do the research and execute that motherfucker. That's normally how your dreams and goals come to fruition. Like I made a lot of money with a lot of companies before. Like, that's not hard. You feel me? The biggest thing and the hardest test in life is actually building something of your own and actually being able to make a lot of money doing that. And, you know, that's what, you know, our mission is here at Dreams of Rollers, and our ultimate goal, you know, in order to help, you know, y'all do the same. You know, how you turn, you know, cultural creativity into something you actually own. That's why, you know, street luxury needs ownership. If street luxury becomes a meaningful fashion category, there will be enormous value in its, you know, terminology, lingo, its aesthetic language, its design style, its designers, its institution, its intellectual property, its history, and ultimately its cultural narratives. You know, Dreams of Rulers shouldn't simply participate in that conversation, should build assets around its contribution to it. And that's ultimately as what you're seeing in the collections that we drop, the poetry albums that we drop, you know what I'm saying? The books that we even drop as well too. Just so that way you get context to not even, you know, just buying clothes, but understanding the meaning behind each piece and, you know, where its origins come from. Building a brand or building an asset. You know, a brand can generate attention. An asset can, you know, generate long-term value. Fashion house, you know, needs both. What am I building? What that becomes more valuable because I spent years building it. It's not just about how many t-shirts I did sell, you know what I'm saying? But it's more about what did I own after I sold them. That's the ultimate thing. You know, the answer shouldn't eventually just be, you know, do I have a recognizable name? Should be, do I have a body of work, intellectual properties, an audience, a community, a cultural position, an archive, a design language and style, a fashion house. You know, fashion is the creative expression. Business is the machine that allows the expression to survive and ultimately thrive. Ownership is what allows the creator to participate in the value they spent their life actually creating. Here at Dreams of Rulers, you can't just be about making things beautiful. You feel me? If you're serious about, you know, building something, just like, you know, we're serious about building a street luxury fashion house, you have to, you know, understand how to create value, capture value, retain value, and ultimately, you know what I'm saying, provide value right back. If the dream becomes valuable, who owns the, you know, value? And that's the one that creates it and, you know, trademarks it. You know, the one that founded everything. But there's ultimately, you know, ones that intervene, that be on greed. If you don't do things right, that can take that shit right away from you. And that's why you got to stay locked in. Got to understand what you're doing. You got to do the research, come up with a solid plan so that way you can understand the direction in which you're going. And you know what I'm saying? That's how you build a solid brand in business and ultimately start to gain, you know, ownership, masters, things of that sort of, you know, your products, your content, and, you know, your overall legacy and name. So take all that into consideration as you continue to build your business, continue to build, you know, the things that you want to do in order to be successful in your life. That's ultimately what we're talking about here. Building, you know, so that way you can be the best version of yourself, moving with intent, moving with purpose, and understanding that, you know, it's your world too. So keep visualizing, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, like I say, put a solid plan together, do the research, and execute that motherfucker. I'll catch y'all on the next live stream tomorrow. I appreciate all the day ones that's been showing love and tapping into our lives, been subscribing to our channel. And we need y'all guys to do that for us to continue to grow, for y'all to, you know, actually see what we have in store and the, you know, message that we're ultimately trying to push out. You know what I'm saying? So keep visualizing, and I'll check y'all on the next one. I'm out.